Welcome to the STEAM Discovery Project. Thank you all for coming today. I just want to briefly introduce myself and welcome you all in. My name is Adrienne Pruzinski, and I am the founder and program director for StarTech Global Academy, which is a nonprofit dedicated to STEM diversity. We're the ones bringing you the STEAM Discovery Project today. I'm from Seattle, born and raised. I graduated from Garfield High School, and then I joined the Air Force ROTC and studied mathematics at the University of Washington, which was actually not a good match for me. So I transferred out of the program and discovered my real passion. I became an entrepreneur, and here we are with our latest project. The STEAM Discovery Project is a series of free workshops for teens to discover STEAM education and career pathways, plus the resources to get you there, including careers, scholarships, tutoring, mentors, and more. So you may be wondering, what exactly is STEAM? Well, STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. STEM with the addition of arts. Now, when we say arts here, we mean the ways in which technology and STEM are used in the arts. For example, this presentation was designed on a digital app. Part of what we hope you'll find interesting today is all the unique ways that STEAM is used in different types of careers. So before we dive in, I want to cover some quick Zoom etiquette for those of you who are not familiar. If you look in the bottom left corner of your Zoom window, you should see a microphone with a line through it. It looks like this. It means you're muted. We'd like everyone to go ahead and stay on mute until the question and answer part, but you are welcome to use the chat feature. On the bottom of your Zoom window, you should see the chat icon. I'd love if you would all please click on that icon right now, and when the chat box comes up, go ahead and say hi, and it lets us know that the chat is working. Now for your view. At the top right of your window is the view icon. There's the side-by-side speaker view, which will help you best see who's speaking. I have that one circled. There's also the standard view, which shows the presentation with participant cameras on top, and the side-by-side gallery view, which shows the presentation with cameras on the side. Last but not least is just a friendly reminder that we are recording the sessions and we're translating them into other languages so that the community members who are not here can still get the awesome info. So if you know someone who might be interested but that couldn't attend the workshop today, you are welcome to share the recording with them once we post it. Now, for those of you at the location, Magnuson today, hopefully you enjoyed some free pizza. You may also note the first 10 participants to sign up and complete the workshop's exit survey win $25 Amazon gift cards. We actually have a lot of gift cards to give away. So please send your email through the chat if you did not already sign up. That way we can match your email with the email in the exit survey, and please stay for that exit survey. That is how we give you that Amazon gift card. For those of you who don't win, we do have swag packs at Magnuson to pass out today. You can get those all day long. Now for the agenda. We've covered the intro and the Zoom etiquette. The other topics are why STEAM with our workshop lead, STEAM stories with our special guest speakers, and a Q&A panel with our special guest panelists. Then we'll finish with a very brief exit survey, which helps us improve the workshops. It finds out if you want to be matched with a STEAM mentor, and it also helps us keep the workshops free. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to the workshop lead, Mila Hightower.
There we go. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? My name is Mila Hightower. I am from Seattle, Washington, born and raised in the South Seattle area mostly. I went to South Shore K-8 for most of my pre-high school years, and then I graduated from Cleveland High School in 2016. I originally transferred to Cleveland for basketball, but Cleveland is a STEM high school or STEAM high school, and so they have all their students do either a life sciences track or an engineering and design track. Fortunately, I was placed in the life sciences track and I fell in love with it. And it took me maybe a semester or two to figure out that that's what I wanted to do for my career. So that's how I ended up here today. Now, why STEAM? There are hundreds, if not thousands, of different STEAM careers, and today we just wanted to explore some of those with you. There are also many different pathways to a career in STEAM, and you can choose the one that fits you best. Something important to note is that in the US, STEAM jobs are growing at twice the rate of non-STEAM jobs. So there will be jobs waiting for you in STEAM when you graduate school. And also in the US, the average pay for STEAM jobs is twice as much as the average pay for non-STEAM jobs. let's play a little game. When you hear STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, what careers come to mind? Let's see what careers we can all think of as a group. Feel free to use the chat box to enter your guesses, and I'll give you guys a few moments to think of some careers. Someone took mine. Great guesses, great guesses. So let's see. Oh, we got one more. I missed that one. Good guesses. So something to note is that STEAM is extremely diverse. It's not just scientists and engineers. It's so much more. In the images on the left, you see a man and a woman in a biotech lab. Very sciencey. On the image below them is a man and a woman in a music studio using music or DJ mixing equipment. These are both STEAM careers. Now, like I said earlier, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of STEAM careers, and today we just wanted to highlight a range of careers to get your wheels turning on what's possible. Now, here are some science-based careers related to health and wellness. First, we have dentistry. You can do nursing, pharmacy, and medicine. You can become a lab technician, a counselor, or into psychology. You have physical therapy and fitness. Just make sure I'm not missing any chats. Perfect. And then the life science, other science pathways include the nature and life sciences. You have ecology and land stewardship, zoology, forestry, environmentalism, or becoming a veterinarian. On the technology and business side of things, you could get into game development, website or app development, IT systems and security management, DevOps and business operations, or digital marketing. In the media and art side of STEAM, you have graphic designing. You could become a multimedia artist, a digital animator, or a multimedia creative director. And on the technical art side of STEAM, you have entertainment and audio visual careers like director of photography, videography, visual effects technician, or becoming an audio engineer. Another really cool thing to note about STEAM, is that there are multiple pathways to get into the career that you want. Pretty much all STEAM careers are going to require a GED or a high school diploma, so that's usually going to be your first step. With 1 to 2 years after graduation, you usually get an associate's degree or a certificate. 4 years will usually net you a bachelor's degree, and then 6 to 12 years would be something like a master's or a doctoral degree. 12 years definitely seems like a lot of time, but remember that time is going to pass anyway. So where do you want to be in 12 years? What do you want your life to look like? What do you want to be doing? How do you want to be spending your time? The key is to figure out what you're interested in, see what careers there are, and then start down the path. And don't worry about paying for your education. There are always scholarships, grants, and student loans that will help you cover the cost. At the end of the workshop, we'll connect you with a resource guide that will help you with tutoring, scholarships, and more. Sorry about that.
This is not something, she means so much to us, and she's such a great kid.
Alrighty, sorry about that. Okay. Another really great thing to note about STEAM is that the jobs pay very, very well. We like to call it a family wage, meaning you can live on it and support a family. Each of those career fields has a way to get into it, the ones that I mentioned earlier, with a shorter path, a medium path, and a longer path. Usually the longer paths will pay more, but not always. There are some 2-year paths like business operations or information security that will pay as much as the 6 to 12-year paths. We're talking $25 to $45 an hour, but it really depends on the specific career. So some key takeaways to take from this workshop. First, that STEAM is very diverse. There are many careers that you can get into, all the way from engineers at Boeing or SpaceX to life sciences and multimedia artists. Secondly, that there are multiple pathways to each career field. On average, careers in STEAM will require 1 to 12 years of schooling, But remember that time is going to pass anyway. So where do you want to be in 12 years? And third, if you put it all together, it's really about finding something you're interested in, like how I got into my life sciences in high school. I looked into choosing a pathway, which was definitely some years of schooling, and then you let it lead you to a career in STEAM. And lastly, it's very important to note that most jobs will have ongoing training and education, so you can always switch careers or pathways if you change your mind. Now, before we get to our guest speakers, I wanted to take a quick second to show you the resource guide that I mentioned. We've been creating a guide for each workshop location with a list of local resources, including advising, tutoring, scholarships, computer labs, study spaces, free Wi-Fi, food, workshops, and so much more. To give you a quick little example, you can find it via the link at the bottom of this page, starttechga.org/guide. If you ever forget it, you can always go to steamdiscoveryproject.org and the resource guide links will be right there in the menu. Here's an example of what it looks like. You can click on the location of your choice and it will take you to a customized list of support resources curated just for you. Now it's time for our first guest speaker. We have Bethany O'Feely, who is a computer engineer and leader in equity, diversity, and inclusion. Take it away, Bethany.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here and share with you a little bit about my career journey in STEAM. And I'm actually on my third career in STEAM. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the first two and about where I am now. I'm going to share my screen for you. Let's see. I'm making sure I'm picking the right window here. Okay, there we go. Share. Okay, I've shared it. Now I need to make it bigger for you all, so it looks right. Okay, so my first career was modeling, and then it overlapped and I was an engineer, a computer engineer, which I still think of myself that way. And now I'm in the equity, diversity, and inclusion space where I still apply a lot of my skills from modeling and from engineering in my current job. And so let me to the next one. So this slide shows a little bit about how I transitioned, because people think about, oh, right now you're thinking about where you're going to start, but then there's how do people end up going between different careers. So on the left, where I started was in high school. I'm from a family of educators and scientists with a couple artists, so kind of a wide range of things. Both of my parents are in science. They're in different types of science, but they're in science. And they definitely encouraged a love and exploration of mathematics, science, and computers. And I spent 4.3 years, I do that 0.3 because it was hard. Every little part of it counts, at University of Washington as a NASA space grant scholar. And what I studied was computer engineering, which is a double degree. From a high school's perspective, what got me there, because of what gets you to a full academic scholarship, is you want to have good grades, but that's not the whole story. And that's for getting a scholarship. You don't have to have good grades to go on to college, and you don't have to have perfect grades to get a scholarship either. And so in high school, I did do my best to work really hard and get good grades, because I knew paying for college was going to be a struggle for my parents. I had literally just finished watching them find a way to pay for their own schooling. And so I saw the stress of the finance. And so I wanted to try and get a scholarship to college. And I tried to become the full package in order to get that. So I did my best to get good grades. I also studied subject matters that were related to things I knew I was going to be interested in, which was writing and science and math. So I went ahead and I took the physics, I took the calculus in high school, and I also made sure to participate in other extracurricular activities. I volunteered, I played basketball, I was on the dance troupe. You want to show that you're a well-rounded person. And because in general, that matters in life. Having multiple skills makes a difference. And so I had the full skill set. I got the scholarship. I went to the University of Washington, and there I learned a very interesting rule of thumb that for every hour you're in class, you want to study for about 2 hours if you want to try and really learn the material. Some classes it's 3, some classes it's 1, but if you start out with that 2-hour rule of thumb, it will really help you. And that was interesting because in high school, it's a little different. Most of your scholastic time is spent in the classroom, and then you have some homework, and it's reverse in college. Most of your time is spent on homework and less time is spent in class, unless you're doing like a lab certification type of a course where you're spending a lot of time in the lab, right? So once I graduated from college, I then became, I spent 1 year in a corporate job. So at first I would say I'm an integrator. I'm the first Black woman to get the degree that I got from the University of Washington, with all that implies in terms of it was a very terrible and difficult experience with people who were hostile to me being there. But I completed it anyway. And when I was done, I took a break. And at that point, I had already been modeling. So first career modeling, actually. So this is how did I start the engineering? It started basically in high school knowing I wanted to do science, but then really college was the core of that. But I started modeling when I was 14 and started being paid for that when I was 15. And so I just took a break from all computer everything for a year and a half after University of Washington, and I modeled. I made my money modeling. I traveled. I was an artist. That's the art part of the STEAM. And I was also a consultant. Modeling taught me a lot about how to be a consultant and how to be a contractor, how to be self-employed, and customer service and the value of that, in addition to learning other things around marketing and retail and a lot about how businesses run and apply marketing to make their money. So those are some of the skills I learned. So I'm being a model, and I go and I work a year and a half in an office as a computer consultant. I'm coding in Java, and I really didn't like it. I didn't like commuting 45 minutes every day. I didn't like the discomfort of being in an office. Like, it's not really comfortable. You're not in your own space. People can interrupt you at any time. Like, people don't have doors, you have cubicles. It didn't really work for me. And I've always been a web developer, a network developer. I'm not even writing code on servers in the office. I didn't even understand why I was there. So I quit and I started my own consulting company. And I did 12 years. And what I learned in that time, and I did both things, consultant and computer engineer and model, because I was in charge of my own schedule, so I could do both. And what I learned as an engineer that I really like and that I'm very good at is what I like to refer to as smoke jumping. I specialize in data-driven applications like websites, but websites that do stuff, like you go shopping on the website, or apps, but apps that do something like measure your health, your pulse. That's the type of coding that I did. And in particular, I found my best types of customers and situations where I really could flex were emergency type of situations, people that were kind of in a disaster. Like, we've got this website, we can't get it to work, it's been broken for 6 months, we're at our wits' end. And then I would come in and fix it. And I really, really enjoyed that. I would take defunct, broken projects, people who were at the last wit's end, and make it right. I was like the Mary Poppins of data apps, and come in, sing a few songs, make it right, work with them, and then it was time to move on. They're in maintenance mode, even if we continue. And I did have some customers. For one customer I had for 8 years, where sometimes it's in maintenance mode, and I might be helping them 3 hours a week. And then other times we're in development mode or design mode, and it's 40 hours a week. And then I retired from modeling and wanted to have children. Modeling has a lot of traveling. I didn't want to have travel as a part of my job for having children. So that was part of my my decision. I was also just tired of it. It was really 2 decades in. I had mastered the job. I had made money. I had great customers for many, many years, like Nordstrom and Macy's. I'd been in magazines. I'd worn magnificent dresses and big shows. I'd done the whole thing, and I was ready for something else. And so I retired. And at the same time, I found a job as an employee as a software engineer. And it was a work from home job. And so I kept only a couple of small customers that were important on my consulting firm and didn't look for any new customers, and transitioned into being an employee. And I worked in healthcare. And I had already been in some healthcare data apps for several years, and I really liked it. I liked the difficulty. I liked that it was important for people's lives. And I worked on a healthcare software at OpenText. And I did that for 8 years. And then about a year ago began another transition for me that I did not know was going to be a transition for me. I had been being an engineer. I was interested in leadership. And so I would reach out for various opportunities to volunteer that might make me a little more visible for potential leadership opportunities, because in my group, I had a good relationship with my boss and my coworkers, and we did excellent, excellent work. I managed the connections between 400 laboratories and hospitals and over 10,000 doctors' offices. But I'd hit my ceiling there. It was what it was going to be. There was not ever going to be a management position for me available. And I'd gone from 12 years of running my own business, running teams, to 8 years of being an engineer, where I did run some teams, but it wasn't the same, and I was ready for more. And at the same, and so what happened that started my transition was a conglomeration of events that came together. COVID-19 hit. The whole rest of OpenText started having to work from home. Only some of the employees at OpenText were at home workers. And we started, the Black Lives Matter movement sparked up because of the murder of George Floyd. And that sparked our CEO wanting to do a listening tour on Black Lives Matter and start understanding better. And I volunteered to help plan it. And then I did help plan it. I helped facilitated it. I came with a lot of good ideas for what OpenText could do around diversity and inclusion work. And then I was invited to sit on a working group to plan a strategy for doing more diversity work. OpenText had done like 7 or 8 years of gender work, trying to make it more equal between men and women in the office. And we're ready to focus on more minorities. And by a few months into that, we came up with a really good strategy. And then they offered me the job to lead it and asked if I would like to lead the equity, diversity, and inclusion strategy for OpenText. And so where I am now is I'm the director of equity, diversity, and inclusion at OpenText. It's a global job, and I lead all of our initiatives for having a more equitable workplace. What does that mean? This is what it means. It means I run 8 different volunteer impact teams. Sometimes there's 10, sometimes there's 7. I sit on what is now, the working group is now called the ED&I Council. I also sit on an ED&I Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Steering Committee with the CEO and several of other chiefs in the company, like the Chief Legal Officer, the Chief People Officer, and the Chief Corporate Citizenship Officer. And then we have these 5 pillars that our strategy organizes under. Awareness, which is about training people to understand their biases and to be more inclusive and more fair. It manages our affinity groups, which are employee groups that get together, like we have a group, Black Employee Empowerment. And there's a hiring and develop pillar, the civic action pillar, the power of our business pillar, because it matters how you spend your money and how you plan your software if you want to be diverse and inclusive. And analysis and governance, which is about our policies and our analysis. And so this is the strategy that I created. This is the structure that I created in my current job, where I'm part of a virtual center of excellence for equity, diversity, and inclusion. We have extended teams in 9 different departments, including the legal department and your communications department, your talent acquisition department. Like, if you want to do better as a company and be more diverse, more inclusive, meaning that you're fair, that people feel like they belong, that that when someone, that the best person for the job really does get it, the best person for the promotion really does get it, not just who everybody's comfortable with, then it's a multifaceted solution. And so we also work with the affinity groups, or the groups of employees with special interests, like we have an LGBTQ plus group and a Black employee group and a women's group. The impact teams are volunteers that help me like rewrite policies together. The various business units are, you have to connect with every part of the business if you want to be a more diverse company. And we have volunteer site leaders, which is part of how we manage our volunteer work. And so that's kind of how I transitioned. That's what I do now. I have over 900 participants in 8 months have joined what I do at OpenText. It's a 15,000 person company. So we're starting to get a bit of a percentage of folks involved in a big way. And with that, I'd like to say, whatever your journey is in figuring out what a good job is for you, you do want to pick something that makes you good money, that you can support your family. You want it to be something that you like, and be willing to put in the time to get you where you need to go. It takes what it takes. Time is going to pass anyway. And as you go on your journey, it might change, and you will apply skills from past jobs for new jobs and new careers. And always try to be positive and support yourself. So this is from my bathroom mirror now. My grandfather printed it and gave it to me 20 years ago. And it's something that I call, it's an affirmation. It's a poem that's very positive. And I'm going to read it to you. And remember, in whatever you do, try to pump yourself up. Negativity is all around you. You don't need that. It's good to be supportive of yourself and encourage yourself. So it's this poem called Our Greatest Fear. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So thank you very much for listening. And I hope you learned a little bit about a couple of types of careers.
Thank you, Bethany. Uh-oh, wrong screen. There we go. Thank you, Bethany. Next, we have Dr. Allison Smith, who works in immunology research.
Thank you.
Why don't you take over from here?
All right. Hopefully this works out all right. Can you guys see that okay?
I don't see anything. Oh, yep.
Yep.
Okay. This never works well for me. If you may not realize, I'm not in tech. I'm more in life sciences and biology. So my name's Allie Smith. I'm an associate director. I actually just got promoted last week. And I am in immunology research at CGen. So I don't know if anyone is familiar with CGen. We used to be called Seattle Genetics. But we're a biopharma company. We're actually the largest in the Pacific Northwest. We have about 2,000 employees right now, and we're located in Bothell. So CGen really has been founded on discovering and developing novel anti-cancer therapies to treat a myriad of different cancers for patients. And we were founded about 22 years ago, and to date we have about 3 different approved drugs. So some for lymphoma, one for bladder cancer, and one for breast cancer. And what I do at CGen is really focus on the really early research. So I'll tell you about my background, but where I'm at now is I lead a team. It's a pretty small team. We're about 6 people, and we're focused on using the innate immune system to treat cancer. So the innate immune system are kind of your first line of defense against pathogens and things like that. And so what we can do then is kind of use these innate immune cells. Oh, hopefully this works. Here we go. This is an innate immune cell. This is a macrophage. And these guys are super great at eating things. That's their job. They eat bacteria or viruses or whatever. But our goal is to try to use these and program them then to target tumor cells so that we can get immune system activation to take out tumor cells. And so that's one of the things that we've been focused on and we're really interested in doing. And so what that means in terms of what my job looked like on a day-to-day basis, I have the team and I mostly spend most of my time managing and mentoring them and talking about their results and their experiments, but I also still get to run some experiments. So we make hypotheses about, what's going to happen, what things we might want to try, and we run experiments in the lab. We use human cells to test things. We sometimes use animal models to test things, and we try different drugs and we make new drugs. And so I spend a lot of my time doing that. I also spend a lot of time reading scientific literature. So when we do all these experiments and we get all these results, everyone in the basic research community then publishes it. There's all these scientific journals. And so you can read articles about what other people have done. And I spend a lot of my time doing that so we can understand what other experiments people have done, what else we're learning about the field and how we're moving forward. And that's really important then to come back to our research so that we can then develop new sorts of strategies and methods to target the cancer and those different immune cells. We also spend a lot of time, in team meetings thinking about new strategies, different things we could try, troubleshooting. Nothing ever works the first time. So we spend a lot of time presenting our work to each other, both inside and outside of the company, so that we can get feedback. We can kind of think about things as a group and really do better. And I like to think I spend a lot of my time, unfortunately, making these PowerPoint presentations so that we can communicate what we do widely. And how I got here is maybe a little different than some other people that have talked. I'm not local to Washington. I'm local to Wyoming. So I grew up in a town called Grable, Wyoming, had 1,800 people. I graduated from Grable High School. I think my graduating class was maybe 40 kids. So not a lot there. But about my junior year in high school, we got a new science teacher that was really involved in science fair. And I thought, whatever. Similar to, the introduction, I was trying to look for, ways to kind of, I guess, broaden my, skill sets and get interested in other areas. And this was a nice way to do that. And so I got involved in science fair and I ended up going to the International Science Fair and another International Science Fair competition. And that really sparked my interest in research. In my senior year, I had no other better idea as to what I wanted to do with my life. And so I said, okay, I'll go be a researcher. That'll be great. But I didn't really know how to go about doing that. So I eventually moved on and went to the University of Wyoming. So it's a UW. It's, again, just a little bit different than people here are used to. It's the only four-year university in Wyoming. And I went on a full ride scholarship, which was really useful because it's really difficult to try to figure out how to pay for school. So that was advantageous. But like I said, I always wanted to do research, but I didn't really know much about it. So I went in and majored in chemistry and molecular biology. And early on, I contacted a lot of different researchers and asked if I could come and work in their lab. And lucky for me, Dr. Randy Lewis said, sure, come on in. And so I worked in his lab all 4 years when I was an undergrad. And he did really cool work. What we did there was we genetically engineered spider silk proteins, and then we would express them. I expressed them mostly in plants, but we also had genetically engineered goats that would make the spider silk protein in their milk. And we would purify it out and we would spin it into silk threads and we would test the material properties. And I thought that was super cool. It was an amazing experience. It taught me a ton and it was just really interesting work. But my senior year in college, my mom was diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer. And this was really a big defining moment for me. We were talking to our doctors about treatment options and all the drugs that they were offering her were developed in the 50s or the 80s. And I thought, is this really the best that we've done? Like this was the, mid 2000s. And so I thought this can't be all we can do. And so I really kind of made it my mission to focus then on drug development and drug discovery and then cancer specifically. So to do that, I moved to the Mayo Clinic. So that's in Rochester, Minnesota. It's the #1 hospital in the clinic. In the United States, it's huge. And they really focus on clinical practice and what people think of as translational research, doing research that is going to directly benefit patients. And that was really important to me. And so I went there and I spent about 6 years getting a PhD in molecular pharmacology and experimental therapeutics. And that's a mouthful, but what that really means is that I spent a lot of time trying to understand how cancer drugs work, how they kill tumor cells, and then why that doesn't happen, right? Not everybody responds to cancer therapies, and there's mechanisms tumor cells can employ to evade those drug killings. And so I spent a lot of time trying to understand that. But I grew up in the Mountain West, and then I went to Minnesota, which is filled with cornfields. And so my husband didn't like that very much. And so, he said, okay, let's get out of here. It's time to transition. And he sent me a job ad, and I wanted to highlight this because he sent it to me and I said, I'm not qualified for this. This is for an immunologist. And he said, oh, okay. But I applied anyways, and I ended up getting that job. So there's a little lesson there, I think. Maybe even if you think you're not qualified, put yourself out there and give it a try, see what happens. But with that, we ended up moving to a place called Hamilton, Montana, and I worked for GlaxoSmithKline Vaccines. And this is where I learned immunology. So here we did vaccine discovery and development. So this last year in COVID has been really interesting for me. I left the vaccine development piece, but I think it's been really fascinating to watch what's happening with the pandemic and the vaccine development. That's been amazing sort of work for those groups of people. And I spent about 3.5 years there, but what happens often in biotech and pharma is there are reorganizations and layoffs. And so my entire group was laid off. That means we lost our job. But we are fortunate that we could move more or less as a whole group to the University of Montana, where I continued really similar work as an assistant professor. And we also started a small biotech company called Inimmune, again, where we were kind of doing this immune system discovery and development. And I spent about 2.5 years doing that. But like I have noted here, it was 2 half-time jobs that took up 200% of my time. And so that was getting to be a little bit old and wearing on me. So eventually I looked for a new job, and I really wanted to transition back into cancer. And that's where I found CGen and the position I'm at now. And it's really been a fantastic 3 years. And I'm really happy that I made the move to CGen and to the Pacific Northwest. I think we're really happy here. And so that's kind of my journey. I just wanted to highlight a couple of the things that really have stuck out to me along the way that have been kind of defining factors. And I thought this was interesting because we all kind of highlighted this, right? I think it's important to really try things, right? You're maybe not going to find what you like on the first shot out. It's probably unlikely that you will. I don't know that I know anybody who went to college and actually got a degree in what they started with. You'll notice my chemistry degree, which I do have, but I've never used. And so like, Mila highlighted, time's going to pass anyways. So I love this quote from Warren Miller, if you don't do it this year, you'll just be 1 year older when you do. Also, it's really important to ask for help. So when I was in high school and I wanted to do research in college, I didn't have any idea how to go about that. But a friend of a friend said, hey, why don't you, look on the internet and see if you can contact some researchers and, ask them if they'll take you into their lab. And that's how I ended up getting hooked up with Randy and getting into the lab. And so I think most people are really willing to go out of their way to help you, but you have to, just put yourself out there and ask for what you need. Also, this is a big one for me, but being able to speak up. I'm naturally a pretty shy and introverted person, and I don't like to speak up, but everyone has a really unique perspective and voice. And unless you're willing to ask questions or put your opinion and your thoughts out there, people aren't going to realize that. And, you're going to kind of stay hidden in the shadows. So I think it's really important to get the courage to speak out and ask questions. And if you're not good at that, that's okay. You don't have to be innately good at it. You can just work on it. You just know that's something you want to improve on and spend the time to do that. And then the last thing is just finding the right balance between passion and practicality. I think you guys are pretty young for this, but I think it's important really to find a passion, something that you really are interested in and love, but it doesn't have to just be work there. I think it's important to have other things that are really important to you so that, in research, most of the time things don't work. And so if we have other things in our lives that keep us happy and grounded, I think that's really important. So that was most of the stuff I wanted to talk about. So I'll kind of close, and if you guys have questions or thoughts, we can discuss.
Thank you, Allie. Yeah, to piggyback on that too, I really can't overemphasize how important it is to just be friendly and ask questions and talk to, at least like when you're in college too, especially like a lot of professors are happy to have you come ask them if you can work in their lab. You know, they love to see students with initiative. And I think if you show initiative, you know, most people will really respond to that, even if you have no idea what you're doing. You know, I think that's just great advice. It's always just introduce yourself and get to know people, because people in STEAM are often very friendly. So that will transition us right into our Q&A period. We have a little under 10 minutes or so for questions. So if you guys want to ask a question, you can win a prize to help get the ball rolling. We have some t-shirts at Magnuson at the location to give away, and plenty more Amazon gift cards to give away while supplies last. So if you have any questions, feel free to, I'm not sure if we have anyone actually on the screen, but feel free to ask questions through the chat, or you can raise your hand and we can call on you. I'll give you guys a little bit to think of some questions if you have any. But to get the ball rolling, let me introduce everyone. For our Q&A panel, we have Reese James, who is an immunologist in biotech, Mari Rossi, who works in winemaking, enology and fermentation science. Bethany, of course, we know, the computer engineer and leader in equity, diversity, and inclusion. Of course, Allison Smith, and we have Dr. Jonathan St. Clair, who is an industrial physicist. Oh, excuse me, Dr. Allison Smith. I would never let anybody forget that when I get my PhD. And then Dr. Jonathan St. Clair, who is an industrial physicist working with applications of lasers and electro-optics and aerospace and defense. That was a long one. To get the ball rolling though, I'd love to know, since we didn't really get to hear from Mari today, if you could walk us through what a day is like in your job. I'm not sure if the kids are familiar with enology or fermentation, because I'm not.
Yeah, honestly, when I was young, I wasn't really familiar with it either. I kind of happened upon it when I was in college looking for a direction to go with my love for math and science. And luckily, I was able to take some classes in winemaking and viticulture, which is more of the grape growing as well. So a day in the life for me is all over the place. It depends on what time of year. During the fall, we're in harvest, and that's usually when we're bringing the grapes in from the vineyards. And we're doing everything from forklifting the grapes into a bunch of machinery to pop the grapes out one side, and all the stems and everything go out the other and get composted. And then the grapes basically sit there for a day, and we do some analysis and chemistry on the juice prior to fermenting it from juice to wine. So we'll do anything from basically testing the sugar levels, keeping an eye on the temperature. We typically inoculate with some yeast to make sure that the fermentation goes well. We keep track of it throughout its kind of lifetime, which is typically about 14 days. And then we make sure that the wine gets pressed off the skins and put into oak barrels. And then we monitor it for, when it's a red wine, typically 20 to 24 months before we put it into bottles. So throughout that time, we're monitoring and making sure that the wine is healthy through a lot of different scientific analysis that I perform in the lab. So I get to do a lot of hands-on in the lab as well as hands-on in the cellar. It's a really physical job, tangible. You get to see the science happening, which is amazing. So day in the life, it changes. We're bottling here coming up. So we're pumping wine from barrels into tanks before we can get it into the bottle. So that's kind of what we're doing right now, heading out to the vineyards in Eastern Washington tomorrow to check on the grapes. And that's what we're working on.
Thank you. Excellent answer. Just a reminder again for everybody at the workshop too, that if you ask questions, you get more gift cards. So feel free to throw something in the chat. And we just will need your email in there, and we'll need it for the survey anyway. But we have a lot of Amazon gift cards to still give away, guys. So ask your questions. I don't think we have any yet, so I will keep it going. Dr. Sinclair, I was wondering about what opportunities for career advancement you felt like your job had, or were there a lot of those opportunities?
Okay, that's a great question. Let's see. So there were opportunities to transition to other groups that became available. Generally, we were asked to solve problems that production systems or products that were out in the field had. And so the opportunities to transition sometimes happen because those internal customers appreciated what we did and they wanted us to transition. I was certainly invited to join the management system, and I did some of the early work associated with transitioning. However, I guess I felt like I was having a lot of fun doing the task I was doing. And there were two tracks within the Boeing company for advancement. One was a technical track, and the other was the management track. And so I was recruited for both of those, and my preference was to go the technical track because at the high end of the technical track, you were basically a go-to person for everyone in the company at the highest level, and you had a lot of influence. So that was called a technical fellow, and I was on track to become a senior technical fellow. I started out as an associate technical fellow, which is the first layer, sort of equivalent to a first line manager. And then I transitioned to, on the technical side, a technical fellow. And I retired before I took on the task of becoming a senior technical fellow. My particular and most impactful mentor was one of the very first technical fellows that the Boeing ever awarded when they started the program, and he became one of the first senior technical fellows. So I was blessed to have a mentor who was interested in me and was able to drive me, help guide me. I did not like the activities that the managers were doing because it was further away from the technology. And I was having a lot of fun learning about new devices that were being evolved and their applications and how I could transform them to solve some interesting and impactful problems. And so I had those opportunities, and they sort of came along. The more outspoken I was, the more I worked to find new ideas, the more I worked to understand what the problem was, what the customer really needed. That gave me more and more opportunities to seek advancement.
Thank you. Very well-rounded answer. We still have a few minutes, Adrian, for some more questions.
Yes, we have time for a couple more questions before we move on to the exit survey.
Perfect. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, Liseth or Lyseth.
Maya said she has a question.
Yes, she did. Hey, Maya, you can go ahead and type it into the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask your question, whichever you prefer. And yeah, if anyone else has any questions, just you feel free to put them in the chat. We want to get you guys your gift cards. Let's see, Maya might be able to request her to unmute.
Questions asked, is that 2 gift cards? Just
What was that? Sorry,
Yeah.
what was that?
That's a good question. They get a gift card for participating and filling out the exit survey, and they get more gift cards for asking questions. We have lots of gift cards to give away.
Okay, well, Maya, feel free to ask your question, and Lisa just direct messaged me and said she does have a question, so feel free to just type it in the chat.
Or unmute and ask it verbally if you want to. That's fine also.
Whichever you prefer. So Maya wants to know, I'll get you next, Lisa. Maya wants to know, do you need college to become a business owner? And do you start from the bottom? That is a good question. Who would love to answer that one?
I can
Bethany,
answer
please
that.
go ahead.
You do not need college to become a business owner. You basically have to go fill out paperwork with Washington State and the federal government. So it's like 2 sets of paperwork to become a business owner. A lot of people just do it at Washington State and don't really do anything at the federal level until they have employees. So it helps to, if you know you want to be a business owner, it can help to go to college, but there's also community college and other types of certifications around this, a lot of times available through the community colleges or technical colleges. But it's not a requirement. They don't require anything from you except for like, do you know your social security number, basically, to start it. So yeah.
Thank you. Maximus wanted to know if you do you need to finish school? I'm not sure if that was directed towards the business question, but I mean, some of these career fields are going to require you to have a degree. Usually it'll be pretty clear in the job, requirements, what level of education is required, but some jobs you really will say you need it, and you can get in the door, talk to the people, and they'll give you the training, as when you go. So it's always worth it to just kind of make the connection and ask someone who works there. Another question was, but it would help you if you go to college than those who didn't. It really depends, I think. Bethany, you want to answer that one?
I'd say yes, at least community college. One thing I'd like to say is like college is different than high school. Some of high school is like getting through it, and college is like much more interesting. It's much less time in a classroom and more time on independent study. Certification courses are a lot different than what you're experiencing right now in high school. But even if you're thinking about dropping out of high school, you don't have to. Washington State has a lot of virtual options that are different than what you're experiencing right now. So there's a lot of ways to get to the end game. It's not a requirement to have a degree, a college degree to start a business, or a high school, but the people who get those degrees have better information to help them succeed, is what I would say. So then it's like, if you know that there's something you want to start a business with, then let that inform what you study. You should finish high school. I've read of people who didn't finish high school and started a business. It's very rare for it to make them very much money, though. So I would recommend finishing high school, because here's where it starts to stop you. Okay, let me tell you where it starts to get funky with the high school and the college with the business. Is then when you want your business to blow up. And a lot of times the way to get things to blow up, people don't realize this, is doing business with other businesses, all right? And so let's say it's between you and some other business to be a new line of t-shirts in Target, all right? They are going to pick the person with the business who studied something around business over the person who never studied anything around it, if all else is equal, when they're making choices, which they'll do things like, I'd like an urban line, something grassroots, and they go find it, and then you're competing as a business against other businesses. And so like my brother had this friend at Clark, which also, wow, like the Black colleges, oh my God, so magnificent. But and she knew from day one that she wanted to open up a hair salon, that she was going to run her own business and she was going to open up a hair salon. But she went ahead and went to college anyway, even though she really knew how to do hair. Basically, she was already very gifted around that, braiding, locking. Okay, she knew it. But then what she did was she studied business at Clark, so that she had a background to really know how to strategize and grow and blow that business up, manage money. And that's where it can really come and bite you. So I would say if you're hating school, try and focus with it on a purpose. You're getting through it to get to something. and that it has things to offer you. In particular, if you can get past your high school, and maybe you need to talk to your mom about doing a virtual option or something. There's a lot of options out there that let you finish high school, study some cool stuff, and then you can go to a community college, potentially even online, and study some business there. And you can start your business at the same time while you're doing that. You don't have to do one or the other, right? But then you're feeding knowledge for how to succeed at your business. If you went to a community college, it would be like an associate's degree. That's somebody that said, how long do we have to go to college for business? If you're like over school, your baseline degree around business would be a business degree at an associate's level. The most baller business degree you can get, like to be boss, is like, people can start a business and then people acquire your business. They buy your business. They keep you on as like a manager, and you like pocket millions of bucks, but you still have a job. That most boss degree is called a master's in business administration. That's a master's degree. You finish your college degree, usually a 4-year college degree, and then you do 1 more year for that. It's called an MBA. And that is considered your boss. Oh, Reese, would you like to speak to that?
I meant Reese went to the
MBA.
military. Sorry. No, Reese went to the military.
Sorry, I'm off. I read the chat and I'm off. So there's several degrees, but the baseline, let's say you make it through high school, you're like, all right, I'm going to do community college. I'm going to give it a chance. It's different. I'm going to study business. I'm going to fuel my business. You get to the end of that 2 years of community college and you realize, you know what, this has been really interesting. I can feed my business idea on the side. I'm going to keep it going. Then you would transfer to a university and do a couple more years and walk away with an MBA, which that's a 1 or 2, usually a 1-year degree that's incredibly intense study of how you succeed in business. It's really interesting. Yeah, I see somebody asked, anybody go to the military? Somebody asked about how much does college cost? And there might be going to the military. Reese, you went to the military. You want to speak to that as a way to help fund college?
And then I think we have to wrap up our Q&A if you want to touch on that quickly, Reese, because we do need to do our exit survey.
Yeah, I did. I would say it's not as straightforward, I guess, as you would think. I mean, they certainly get that money out of you in terms of, time and how much, it complicates a lot of other things as well, but it's certainly something a lot of people do.
Yeah, sir. Let me just comment quickly. One thing on business is if you're going to go to business for yourself, you will be taught immediately that the real boss is your customer, the guy who's paying for whatever it is that you're offering. And so your critical learning objective is, what do I need to learn to communicate so I know what the customer needs so that he'll pay me and that my business will function. And another point I want to make is my older brother went directly into the military. He was drafted for the Vietnam War, served a couple of years, a couple of tours, and then he stayed in and he completed his degree while he was in the armed services, and then he continued until he retired from the armed services. So there's a number of trajectories passed to get to the amount of information you need to succeed in that which interests you. But no matter what you do, you gotta meet somebody's need, either as an employee or as a business owner, for them to pay you. And in order, you have to learn something about that person's needs and that industry in order to succeed. I just wanted to make those points to folks. I'm done.
Excellent point.
I see one more question. It says, how much does college cost? It's a range of costs, anywhere from like a couple $1,000s to crazy things that I'm just like, make me want to fall out of my chair. But they have things like financial aid where they evaluate how much money your parents make and then just kind of give you, basically, it's like a scholarship. There's loans that people do, and there's also the ROTC path, which is military. You get into college and then you join the ROTC, and that's like your officer path. And there's ways it can help. There's tons of ways to pay for school. I wouldn't let the cost be prohibitive at all. And yes, there's scholarships for all types of school, including med school. And joining the military, they just want you to be reasonably healthy. And then they kind of test you to see the stuff that you might be good at a lot of times and place you. You have more flexibility in what you might do in the military, at least at jump, if you do it from the college track and do the ROTC.
Okay, we've got to move on to our Q&A. Thank you guys for all the questions. Awesome questions and perfect segue into letting you know about if you're interested in having a mentor. Let us know in the exit survey we're about to do, and we'll match all the rest of your questions. Sorry we didn't get to all of them, Michael. I think the other one we didn't answer, just to know there are endless possibilities to study in college. I think you can even like get a PhD in like Harry Potter nowadays. Some school in like England, I think, does that. But you know, it's really endless possibilities. You just find something you're interested in, and I'm sure you can find a degree related to it. So now it is time for our exit survey. Thank you to all of our panelists for your great answers. Thank you to all of our participants for the great questions. Let's see, I'm a little behind over here. Okay, now you got the link. We're gonna put the link in the chat box now. Remember that the link is case sensitive, so it's got to be lowercase if you copy and paste it, but I think you'll be able to and go to the survey. It's very, very fast, you guys. You know, takes less than 5 minutes. And we promised you the $25 Amazon gift cards after completing the workshop. So please make sure to put your emails in the chat as well to get the $25 and also be matched with the mentors. We need you to do the link for the survey and have those emails in the chat. It really only takes a few minutes. Don't forget the link is all lowercase. And then once you see the confirmation screen on the survey, then you're done and you can go ahead and exit the meeting. Don't forget to check out steamdiscoveryproject.org for more workshops every Wednesday through June 16th. The survey link is also posted there. And finally, our resource guide. Thank you guys so much for coming.